The blue-white marble of Earth spun peacefully below as Admiral James Stone stood at the observation deck of Space Station Delta, his weathered hands clasped behind his back, eyes fixed on the strange ships approaching Earth's orbit. After centuries of watching the galaxy, first contact was finally happening, but not on humanity's terms. The alien vessels gleamed like polished silver, their curved designs speaking of advanced technology and absolute confidence. There were 5 of them, each larger than anything humanity had publicly displayed in space. The lead ship alone stretched 3 kilometers from bow to stern, its hull decorated with markings that the Earth's best computers were still trying to decode. "Admiral," called out Lieutenant Walker from his console, "they're broadcasting on all frequencies. The message is being translated now." Stone didn't turn around. He already knew what the message would say. Human intelligence vessels had watched the Galactic Council for decades, hidden in the darkness between stars. They had seen this same scene play out on a dozen worlds. The main screen flickered to life, showing a tall figure with gray-blue skin and eyes that seemed to glow with inner light. The alien wore ornate robes covered in symbols of authority, its head adorned with what could only be described as a crown. "People of Earth," the translation came through clearly. "I am High Speaker White Light of the Galactic Council. For 50,000 years, we have guided the younger races of this galaxy toward enlightenment. Your world has been washed, and you are now deemed ready to join our civilization. Submit to our authority, and you shall be elevated. Resist, and you shall be corrected." Stone allowed himself a small smile. The same speech, word for word, that they had given to the people of Proxima B before destroying their cities. The same ultimatum delivered to the crystal beings of Ta City before their enslavement. "Sir," Walker spoke again, "the President is ready to respond." The screen split, showing Earth's leader in her simple black suit. No ornate robes, no crown, just the quiet dignity of a human being who knew exactly what was about to happen. "High Speaker," she said, her voice calm and measured, "we appreciate your offer. However, humanity must decline. We will not bow." The alien's glowing eyes narrowed. "You misunderstand. This is not an offer. It is your destiny. The Council has spoken, and our word is law." Stone finally turned from the window, nodding to Walker. "Send the signal," he ordered quietly. Deep in the darkness of Saturn's rings, the UES Retribution powered up its systems. The massive warship, hidden for years in plain sight, was humanity's true face, not the primitive space stations and simple satellites they showed to watching eyes. "You have 1 hour to reconsider," the High Speaker declared. "After that, we will provide a demonstration of the consequences of defiance." The President simply smiled. "Look behind you," she said. The alien's expression changed as alerts began blaring on their ships. The Retribution had dropped its cloaking field, its massive form dwarfing the Council vessels. 20 kilometers of advanced human engineering, powered by technology the Council didn't even know was possible. "Impossible," the High Speaker whispered. You're barely past your industrial age." "Our surveys showed exactly what we wanted them to show," Stone cut in, stepping into view of the camera. "For 100 years, we've watched you bully and enslave younger races. We've recorded every atrocity, documented every abuse of power. Did you really think Earth was our only world?" The Council ships began to turn, charging their weapons, but they were too slow. The Retribution's first shot wasn't even a weapon. It was a focused pulse that disabled their communication systems. No calls for help would reach the Council today. "This is humanity's response to your demand," the President announced. "We reject your authority. We reject your so-called guidance, and we are going to dismantle your empire of oppression, piece by piece." Stone watched as the Council ships attempted to flee. Their engines flared bright against the black of space, but they had nowhere to go. The Retribution had already locked them in a gravity well. "You don't understand what you're doing," the High Speaker pleaded, its composure cracking. "The Council cannot be defied. We are eternal. We are power itself. No, Stone replied. You're just bullies who've never faced someone stronger than you. That changes today. The last thing the Council ships saw was the Retribution's main cannon powering up, its energy signature unlike anything their sensors could comprehend. Humanity's response to tyranny was about to be felt across the galaxy. The war had begun. The news of Earth's defiance spread through Council space like wildfire. In the grand meeting hall of the Council's capital world, 300 alien representatives shouted over each other. Their voices echoed off the crystal walls as emergency alarms flashed red. 5 ships. They destroyed 5 ships without warning, yelled one representative, his scales turning pale with fear. Impossible. They were using wooden rockets just 50 years ago, screamed another. At the center of the chaos stood War Commander Red Storm, his 4 arms clenched in anger. The loss of the diplomatic fleet was the first defeat the Council had suffered in 10,000 years. His deep voice cut through the noise like a blade. Enough. We will show these humans the price of resistance. Launch the punitive fleet. Deep in space, Admiral Stone watched the Council's response through the Retribution's advanced sensors. 300 warships jumped into the solar system, their weapons already charging. Each ship carried enough firepower to level a continent. Right on schedule, Stone muttered, looking at his command screen. They never learn. Lieutenant Walker stood at his station, monitoring Earth's hidden defense grid. Sir, the Council fleet is broadcasting their demands. They're ordering immediate surrender or they'll destroy every major city on Earth. Stone nodded calmly. Activate the grid. Let's show them why that's a bad idea. Across Earth's orbit, thousands of hidden satellites suddenly powered up. They had been disguised as space junk, painted to look like old rocket parts and broken satellites. But each one carried a quantum weapon more powerful than anything the Council had ever seen. The Council fleet's commander laughed when he saw the satellites. They think this junk will stop us. Fire the first warning shot. Target their largest city. But when the Council ships fired, something impossible happened. Their energy beams hit an invisible wall of warped space, created by Earth's defense grid. The powerful weapons that had destroyed so many civilizations just disappeared into nothing. What trickery is this? The Council commander demanded. No primitive race has this technology. Stone's voice came through their communication systems, calm and clear. We're not primitive. We just wanted you to think we were. The Retribution emerged from its hiding place behind Earth's moon, its massive form casting a shadow over the Council fleet. But it wasn't alone. From behind every planet and major moon in the solar system, human ships appeared. Each one was bigger and more powerful than anything the Council had ever built. You see, Stone continued, while you were busy bullying younger races, humanity was watching. Learning. Preparing. We built our real cities underground. We hid our technology. We let you think we were weak. The Council commander's voice shook with rage. You dared deceive the Council. We will destroy everything you. His words cut off as the Retribution fired a single shot. The beam of energy wasn't bright or flashy. It simply passed through their strongest shields like they weren't there. When it touched the commander's flagship, the massive vessel didn't explode. It simply came apart, every atomic bond broken at once. That, Stone announced to the remaining fleet, was a warning shot. The next one won't be aimed at just one ship. The Council fleet tried to retreat, but Earth's defense grid had already created a quantum lock around the solar system. Their jump drives were useless. You have 2 choices, Stone declared. Surrender now and carry our message back to your Council, or join your commander in atoms. You have 30 seconds to decide. Walker looked at his screen as ships began powering down their weapons. Sir, they're surrendering. 299 ships, all dropping their shields. Stone nodded, his face serious. Send the message through their communication systems. Make sure every crew member hears it. Across every Council ship, screens lit up with Earth's declaration. The age of council tyranny is over. Humanity has awakened, and we will not allow the strong to bully the weak any longer. This is your only warning. The next fleet you send will not receive mercy." As the council ships were allowed to retreat, Stone looked out at the stars. The real war hadn't even started yet, but humanity had sent its message. The galaxy was about to change forever. The council's great hall had never been so quiet. 200 representatives sat in shocked silence as they watched the recording of their fleet's defeat for the 10th time. The image of their best ships surrendering to the humans played on the massive screen, burning their shame deeper with each viewing. War Commander Red Storm stood before them, all 4 of his arms trembling with rage. 300 warships, he growled. Our best ships, our finest warriors, and they were treated like children playing with toys. Elder Blue Flame, the oldest member of the council, leaned forward in his floating chair. His ancient eyes narrowed as he studied the image of the human warship. This technology, it should not exist. No race could advance this quickly. "Unless," said another council member, her crystal body glowing with concern, "they have been hiding their true power from us." The room erupted in angry shouts again. Some demanded immediate revenge. Others called for peace talks. A few even suggested abandoning the entire sector of space around Earth. Red Storm slammed his fist on the podium. "Silence. We cannot show weakness. The Council has ruled for 50,000 years. We will not be humbled by these upstarts." Deep in the background, a quiet voice spoke up. "But what if we're wrong?" All eyes turned to Greenleaf, the youngest council member. She stood up, her plant-like body swaying gently. "What if we've made a terrible mistake? These humans, they didn't just beat our ships. They played with us. They knew exactly what we would do." Meanwhile, aboard the UES Retribution, Admiral Stone received the reports from human spies hidden throughout Council space. He watched through their eyes as the Council argued, their pride blinding them to the truth. "Sir," Lieutenant Walker called out, "our deep space sensors are picking up movement. The Council is mobilizing their entire main fleet." Stone nodded, a small smile crossing his face. "Right on schedule. They're following the exact pattern we've seen them use for 10,000 years. Pride, rage, then overwhelming force." The main screen showed thousands of council ships gathering. Not hundreds this time. Thousands. The largest fleet ever assembled in the history of the galaxy. Ships of every size and design, pulled from every corner of their empire. "They're desperate to prove their power," Stone said quietly. "They'll throw everything they have at us, hoping to crush us with pure numbers." Walker looked worried. "Sir, even with our technology, that's a lot of ships." Stone turned to his crew, his eyes filled with calm confidence. "Remember your history lessons. What happens when a bully is challenged? They don't think. They don't plan. They just hit harder, thinking that force alone will save them." In the council chamber, Red Storm unveiled his grand plan. "We will gather every ship, every weapon, every soldier. We will darken their skies with our ships. We will show these humans what true power looks like." The council members cheered, their earlier fear forgotten in dreams of revenge. But Greenleaf wasn't cheering. She watched the tactical displays with growing horror. "You're sending everything we have?" she asked. "Every ship. What will protect our worlds?" Red Storm laughed. "Protect them from what? Once we crush Earth, no one will dare challenge us again." Back on the Retribution, Stone gave the order they had been waiting for. "Launch Operation Thunderclap. Send the signal to all human ships hidden throughout Council space." Across the galaxy, on hundreds of worlds that the Council thought were under their control, hidden human ships powered up their engines. Each one had been waiting for this moment, positioned perfectly over the years. "Sir," Walker reported, "all ships report ready. The Council's worlds are completely undefended. They've literally sent everything they have to attack Earth." Stone looked at the strategic display, showing the Council's massive fleet heading toward Earth. They thought they were bringing overwhelming force. They didn't realize they were walking into a trap centuries in the making. "Send one last message to all human ships," Stone ordered. "Operation Thunderclap begins in 6 hours. While the Council throws their fleet at our defenses, we'll take every single one of their worlds. Not with violence, but with truth. Show their oppressed peoples what real freedom looks like." The trap was set. The Council's hubris was about to cost them everything they had built over 50,000 years. The Council's massive fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel near the Arcturus star system. 10,000 ships filled the space around the bright star, their weapons ready to fire. At the front of the fleet, War Commander Red Storm smiled as he looked at the empty space before him. "This is where our spies said their main shipyard would be," he announced to the fleet. "But I see nothing. Perhaps the humans are not as powerful as they pretend to be." The Council ships spread out, their sensors scanning every planet and asteroid. They found nothing. No stations, no shipyards, not even a single defensive satellite. The system appeared completely empty. "See," Red Storm laughed. "They ran away. The mighty humans flood before our power." But on the bridge of the UES Retribution, hidden in a fold of space-time just outside normal reality, Admiral Stone watched the Council fleet with calm eyes. "They really never learn, do they?" he said quietly. Lieutenant Walker checked his readings one last time. "All ships report ready, sir. Reality Forge engines are at full power." Stone nodded. "Begin Operation Thunderclap. Show them what a real fleet looks like." Suddenly, the empty space around the Council fleet began to ripple. It looked like the surface of a pond when rain starts to fall. Each ripple grew larger, spreading out in impossible patterns. Red Storm's confidence turned to confusion as his sensors went crazy. "What trickery is this? What are these readings?" Then it happened. The UES Retribution phased into normal space right in the middle of the Council fleet, but it wasn't alone. From every ripple in space, more human ships appeared. Not dozens, not hundreds, thousands. Impossible. Red Storm screamed. Where did they come from? Stone's voice came through every Council ship's communication system. "We've been here the whole time, Commander. You just couldn't see us because you never learned to look beyond normal space." The human ships were massive, each one larger than the Council's biggest vessels. Their hulls glowed with strange energy patterns that the Council's sensors couldn't understand. At the center of each ship, a reality forge engine pulsed with power that defied the laws of physics as the Council knew them. "You see," Stone continued, "while you were busy building bigger guns and stronger shields, humanity took a different path. We learned to fold space itself, to exist between moments of time. Your sensors couldn't find our shipyards because they exist in a reality you can't even see." Red Storm ordered his fleet to fire. 10,000 Council ships launched their most powerful weapons at once. Energy beams and plasma torpedoes filled space, enough firepower to destroy a planet. But when the weapons reached the human ships, they simply disappeared. The reality forge engines bent space around each vessel, sending the attacks into empty dimensions where they could harm nothing. "That's not possible," Red Storm whispered. "No technology can do that." "Actually," Stone replied, "it's quite simple once you understand how reality really works. Would you like to see what our weapons can do?" The Retribution fired a single shot, not a beam or a torpedo, but a wave of altered spacetime that spread out like a ripple in a pond. As it passed through the Council fleet, ships began to change. Some aged thousands of years in seconds, crumbling to dust. Others became quantum copies of themselves, overlapping and canceling each other out. A few simply winked out of existence, transported to random points in space and time. In 30 seconds, half the Council fleet was gone. Not destroyed, simply removed from reality in ways their crews couldn't begin to understand. "This is your last chance," Stone announced to the remaining ships. "Surrender now, and we'll return you safely to normal spacetime. Continue fighting, and you'll learn exactly how many ways a ship can cease to exist." Red Storm stared in horror as his mighty fleet fell apart around him. Everything he thought he knew about warfare, about physics, about reality itself, had just been proven wrong. The Council's greatest fleet had come to crush humanity. Instead, they were learning that they had never been the most advanced species in the galaxy. They had simply been the loudest. One by one, the Council ships began to power down their weapons. The Battle of Arcturus was over before it really began. In the Council's emergency bunker deep beneath their capital world, Elder Blue Flame stared at an ancient stone tablet with trembling hands. The symbols carved into its surface matched perfectly with the markings on human ships. His assistant watched as the Elder's face turned pale. "Impossible," Blue Flame whispered. "All this time, Earth was never their home." On the main screen above them, reports streamed in from across Council space. Human ships had appeared over every major Council world, not to attack, but to broadcast the truth, images and documents that the Council had kept hidden for 50,000 years. Admiral Stone stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, watching as the Council's empire crumbled not from weapons, but from knowledge. "Send the final message," he ordered. "It's time they learned who we really are." Every screen, every communication device across Council space lit up with the same images. Ancient ruins found beneath Earth's surface, starships buried under mountains, and most importantly, the true history of the galaxy. In the bunker, Elder Blue Flame faced the Council's remaining leaders. "The humans," he said, his voice shaking, "are the children of the precursors." The room erupted in panic. The precursors were supposed to be myths, the first race to reach the stars. They had vanished 100,000 years ago, leaving only ruins and mysteries behind. "That's not possible," War Commander Red Storm shouted. "The precursors were gods compared to us. These humans are exactly what the precursors would have become." Blue Flame cut in. "Think. Their reality forge engines. That's precursor technology. Their ability to fold space. Precursor science. We've been fighting the children of our own gods." On the Retribution, Lieutenant Walker brought up the final set of images. "Sir, we're ready to show them everything." Stone nodded. "Let them see what they've been fighting against. Let them understand why we hid for so long." The broadcasts showed the truth. Long ago, the precursors had seen a terrible future coming. Instead of trying to fight it, they had hidden their children, humanity. On a primitive Earth, they erased their own technology, buried their ships, and waited for humanity to grow up naturally. "But why?" Red Storm demanded. "Why hide their own children?" Blue Flame pointed to the ancient tablet. "Because they saw this coming. They saw how power corrupts. They wanted their children to develop wisdom before they gained power. So they hid us among the stars, watching, waiting." "Us?" someone gasped. "Yes," Blue Flame admitted. "Some of us knew. The oldest families of the Council, we were supposed to be guardians, watching over younger races, helping them grow. Instead, we became tyrants. On every Council world, the truth spread. The Council hadn't discovered Earth by accident. They had been drawn there, manipulated by humanity's careful planning. Each primitive rocket, each simple satellite had been part of a test. We watched you for centuries." Stone's voice echoed across the galaxy. "We saw how you treated other races, how you enslaved them, forced them to serve you. You failed the test our ancestors set for you." In the bunker, Blue Flame collapsed into his chair. "The reality forge engines, they're not weapons, are they?" "No," Stone replied. "They're tools for rebuilding reality itself. The precursors left them for us, their children, to use when we were ready, when we had learned enough wisdom to use power without being corrupted by it." The truth hit the Council leaders like a physical blow. They hadn't been fighting a young race that got lucky with technology. They had been fighting the rightful heirs of the galaxy's greatest civilization, a civilization that had chosen to grow up slowly, learning wisdom before power. What happens now? Red Storm asked, his voice barely a whisper. Stone's answer was simple. Now we do what our ancestors intended. We rebuild. We teach. We help younger races grow, not through force, but through guidance and choice. The age of empire is over. The age of wisdom begins. Across the galaxy, Council worlds saw their oppressors' power crumble not from violence, but from truth. The children of the precursors had finally come home, and they had not forgotten their ancestors' mission. The great chains of the Council's power broke one by one. Like dominoes falling across the stars, each Council stronghold faced the same choice: adapt or fall. Admiral Stone watched from the UES Retribution as another Council fortress world surrendered without a single shot fired. Status report, Stone commanded, his eyes fixed on the tactical display showing hundreds of worlds turning from red to green. Lieutenant Walker checked his screens. Sir, the Orion sector is completely free. Council forces are retreating from 57 systems. The slave races of the Diamond Worlds have already formed their own government. The Retribution moved through space like a giant key, unlocking chains that had bound worlds for thousands of years. But unlike the Council's ships of war, it brought no death. Instead, it carried something far more powerful: hope. On the planet below, former Council slaves walked in sunlight for the first time in generations. The force fields that had kept them in underground mines flickered and died as human engineers dismantled the Council's control systems. They're asking to see you, sir, Walker said, looking at a message from the planet's surface. The former slaves, they want to thank their liberators in person. Stone shook his head. Tell them to thank themselves. They stayed strong through 50,000 years of slavery. We just opened the door. They chose to walk through it. Across the galaxy, Council leaders fled toward their secret sanctuary worlds, hidden planets where they had stored their greatest treasures and most powerful weapons. But each time they arrived, they found human ships already waiting. In his command bunker, War Commander Red Storm received another desperate message. Sanctuary World 7 is lost. Humans were there before we arrived. How? How do they know all our secrets? The answer came from Elder Blue Flame, who sat quietly watching their empire collapse. They knew because they built those sanctuaries, you fool. Remember, they are the children of the precursors. These worlds were their inheritance, not our secret hideouts. On each sanctuary world, human archaeologists were already carefully preserving the Council's history, not to destroy it, but to learn from it, to ensure that future generations would remember how easily power could corrupt. The Retribution's next target was the Council's greatest prison world, where they had kept the leaders and thinkers of races that dared to resist. As the massive ship appeared in orbit, the prison guards simply laid down their weapons. They're not even fighting anymore, Walker noted, surprised. Stone nodded. Fear and pride were their only real weapons. Once those were gone, what was left? Even their own people are turning against them now. It was true. Across Council space, their own citizens were rising up, not with violence, but with questions. Why had they been lied to? Why had their leaders hidden the truth about humanity, about their own history? The Council's response was always the same: silence. They had no answers that could justify 50,000 years of oppression. In the Council's capital city, Greenleaf watched as more Council members fled. But she didn't run. Instead, she walked to the central communications tower and sent a message to the Retribution. "I want to help," she said simply. "The Council was wrong. We were all wrong. Please, teach us how to be better." Stone's response surprised her. "That's the first step," his voice came back. "Admitting mistakes, wanting to learn. This is why we didn't just destroy the Council. Some of you are ready to change." The Retribution's next target was the Council's central data core, the great library where they had stored all their knowledge. But when they arrived, they found something unexpected. The data core was already matching perfectly with human technology. "Of course it does," Stone explained to his confused crew. Our ancestors built it. The council just covered it with their own symbols and claimed it as theirs. Like everything else, they took our inheritance and twisted it to serve their pride. As another day ended, more council worlds joined the free systems, not through force, but through choice. The chains that had bound the galaxy were breaking, and in their place, something new was growing. Hope. The next target was the council's throne world itself, and this time, there would be nowhere left for them to run. The council's throne world hung in space like a jewel, its golden cities gleaming in the light of 3 suns. For 50,000 years, it had been the center of power in the galaxy. Now it was the last fortress of a dying empire. The UES Retribution appeared in orbit, but this time it wasn't alone. Behind it, thousands of ships arrived, not just human vessels, but ships from every freed race in the galaxy. They came not to destroy, but to witness the end of an era. Admiral Stone stood on his bridge, looking down at the planet where it had all begun. "Send the message," he ordered quietly. "One last time." Lieutenant Walker nodded. "Broadcasting on all frequencies, sir. Every person on that world will hear it." Stone's voice echoed through every speaker, every communication device on the throne world. "People of the council, this is your final chance. Surrender your power. Accept the new way. There will be no punishment, no revenge, only change." In the great golden palace below, the remaining council leaders huddled in their throne room. The massive chamber that had once held audiences from across the galaxy now felt empty and cold. War Commander Red Storm paced angrily. "We still have defenses. We can still fight." "Fight what?" Elder Blue Flame asked wearily. "Our own destiny. The children of those who built all this in the first place." Above them, the Retribution's Reality Forge engine hummed to life, but instead of destroying, it began to reveal. The Golden City's true form showed through its fake covering, ancient precursor architecture hidden beneath layers of council decoration. "Look," Stone's voice came again. "Look at what you've been hiding from yourselves. This was never your city. You built your throne on borrowed glory." The council leaders watched in shock as their grand palace's true form emerged. The gold melted away, revealing strange and beautiful architecture that pulsed with living light. The throne itself dissolved, showing a simple teaching chair beneath, a place meant for sharing wisdom, not commanding others. "Your choice is simple," Stone continued. "Step down and help us build something new, something better, or cling to your pride and fade into history." Greenleaf, who had returned to represent the reformed council members, stood up. "I choose the future," she said clearly. "Who stands with me?" One by one, council members rose. Not all of them. Some still clung to their seats, faces twisted with anger and fear. But enough stood. Enough chose change. Stone smiled as Walker showed him the numbers. "Sir," the lieutenant reported, 70% of council worlds have already joined the new federation. The rest are asking to join now. And the ones who refuse. Less than 1%, sir. Mostly the oldest, proudest families. They're demanding to keep their power." Stone nodded. "They can keep their pride. But power, that age is over." The Retribution's Reality Forge engine activated one last time. Across the galaxy, ancient precursor technology awakened. Not weapons, but tools, teaching devices, libraries of knowledge. The true inheritance humanity had been protecting all along. In the throne room, Elder Blue Flame walked to the center of the chamber. "I understand now," he said softly. "The precursors didn't leave us because they died. They left to give their children, all their children, a chance to grow up right." Greenleaf looked up at the human ships in orbit. "And now their children have returned, not to rule us, but to teach us." Stone's final message played across the galaxy. "The council's age is over, but this isn't an ending. It's a beginning. Every world is now free to choose its own path." Those who wish to learn, we will teach. Those who wish to grow, we will help. Those who wish to remain alone, we will respect their choice. And those who try to build new empires, Red Storm asked bitterly. Stone's answer was simple. We will be watching, always watching. That is humanity's true mission, not to rule, but to guard. To ensure that what happened under the Council never happens again. As the sun set on the throne world, the great chamber was filled with new voices. Representatives from 100 freed worlds met to build something new. Not an empire of fear, but a federation of choice. The age of the Council was over. The age of wisdom had begun.